All right, we are live. Everybody, this is Dr. Michael Kay from the Center for Functional Health, and today I have the honor of interviewing Sally Tutill. And I met Sally at the Meatstock 2026. I went by her table where she was with her daughter, and we started talking, and we really hit it off. So I wanted to bring her on so you guys can learn from her as well. So Sally, welcome.
Michael, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on your channel today.
Appreciate it. So, want to get into, I know you're a part of Grassland Nutrition, correct? So we're going to talk about that. And I want to get into how did you get here, right? So, getting to where you are, we talked a little bit about the mind-body experience. I know you had a journey. I know you had a health journey as well. So I wanted to discuss that and say, hey, what made the difference? And I know we're going to talk about meat. And we were just talking about how some people feel there's negative consequences against eating meat, but in the case where you and I were, especially at the convention, wow, what a huge difference incorporating meat into people's diets really made from that physiological perspective. So if you can start with your journey, how did you get here?
Sure. Okay, I think I've always been a type of person that is quite sensitive to the outside world and the environment. I think growing up, I was really quite introvert, and I wanted to be like my peers. At around the teenage years, I developed anorexia because everything was just overwhelming at the time, and that kind of stayed around for about 15 years or so. And I came out of that just myself. I think really there didn't need to be kind of any intervention, but I basically developed an unhealthy relationship with food and was triggered with, anything that kind of made me feel anxious or stressed. I would comfort eat, or, just eating healthily just really wasn't something that I did. And there was something that needed to be done there. But, life went on. I was basically an art student. So I studied drawing and painting for a time, and then did sales and marketing for jobs. And then I was married, I had 2 children, and things just started to come apart with us in our relationship, and the anorexia kind of abated. It had abated, but it had kind of started to show up again. I had what were signals of IBS, and they got worse and worse, probably over about a 7-year period. And, I'm not being very chronological here. I do have a YouTube video that does go through the history of my healing. But suffice to say, I went through mainstream medicine for my IBS issues, and really nothing helped. I'd move the marker a little bit, and then I'd have setbacks. But I met Olaf, who is the son of the co-founder of Grassland Nutrition. And it was Grassland Nutrition under the guise that you met me at Meatstock earlier this year. And he said, look, I think if you're willing, let's try a meat, salt and water protocol for 2 weeks. And I really had at that point nothing to lose, because I felt really quite restricted when I went out, just bloating, gas, not feeling connected, and having, I just felt foggy in my head. And I tried that for 2 weeks, and I would say probably like 70 to 80%. The inflammation I had taken a back seat, and that was absolutely profound. And then from there, I stuck with the meat carnivore-based diet strictly for 4 years, and I'm at the 5.5-year mark. I've introduced a lot of Jack Kruse, quantum biology into my life. I am a movement practitioner as well, and that was where I found my passion. And Olaf's parents persuaded me to join the business because they needed help with the marketing and the sales. And Olaf had introduced me to his parents' products a little down the track to accompany the meat to help, I guess, bridge the gaps in my nutrition that I was missing, kind of largely the B12, the iodine, and here we are really. I'm not exclusively a meat eater anymore. I grow my own veggies, go to farmers markets, but and have dairy, but I'm largely meat based, and I'm a lot more connected. I don't feel I don't have those kind of emotional yo-yos, and I've painted myself a bit of a neurotic, but I think just being sensitive to the outside world is probably like where it's at. You know, I've never been on meds or anything, and I've always been really kind of productive when it comes to my work ethic. My dad had his own business and would work long hours to put us both, my sister and I, through university. We'd take 2 holidays a year, so it was really like the model family. But he's, you know, being the swan on the hamster wheel the whole time, and so I tend to work a lot, so I have high stress, but it is positively engaged in kind of working practices, and they are kind of in line with goals and passions. So yeah, I have to take my hat off to Olaf, the co-founder's son, for that. And we've been together probably now for about 6 years. So he was the conduit that got me from my ill health and being inflamed and not being able to get on top of my issues into kind of where I am today. I just feel kind of energetic, vital, focused. I mean, ups and downs with the weather,
Right.
you know, not getting enough vitamin D, but yeah, like really good.
That's great. So, but before Olaf, introduced that, hey, you're going to try this. Were you a meat eater?
Do you know, I was more in line with the vegetarian way of thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Funny that.
Gotcha. Yeah, we see that a lot, right? We see that a lot in practice. So we see where the vegetarian individual comes in, and I respect their philosophy. I understand where they're coming from, but physiologically, it's not aligning, right? So I often say that the philosophy is not aligning with the physiology, and because I understand their concept, what they want to do. I'm an animal lover as well, so but I also eat animal protein, and I think a lot of vegetarians and vegans, they don't always do it right. Mm-hmm. And that's another issue. But we can say the same thing about somebody doing ketogenic and carnivore. They don't always do it right. I mean, look at your carnivore now, how you eat now compared to 3-4 years ago, right? So that's also different. So when we think it was within a week or so, you started feeling like, wow, this already feels different.
I think it was probably more like 12 days. It was at the 12-day mark. I was actually writing in a journal, at the beginning, at the end of the day, just, how my digestion was, how calm and centered I was feeling. Because okay. I would be fearful of eating. I'd go through phases where I thought, well, what the hell? I'm just going to eat because I'm going to feel dreadful.
Right.
But I need to eat. And then I'd go through phases of just not eating very much at all. Yeah.
And when you say meat, and what when you say meat, is it just like, are you like here? I mean, we'll eat bison, venison, elk, lamb. Is what you were eating at that time to help you through that process? Was it just beef? That was it?
Yeah, it was beef. Yeah. So Olaf and his parents have a relationship with a couple of farmers, and they buy beasts at a time, frozen down into roasts, but nice, like fatty roasts. And fat was another thing, I trim all the fat off, thinking, oh, that's really bad for you. That's, that's going to clog the arteries. I'll
Right.
keel over on a run, and
Yeah.
that'll be the end of me. And I think now more than anything, I have a high fat diet. Yeah, it's fat, it's meat, and then it might be like some bitter greens out of the veggie patch, and I'll drink some raw milk. I'll eat eggs. That'll be kind of the daily menu. And coming into Paul Chek's works, there's a lot more vegetables and variety there. And I feel like I'm a little bit on the fence in that I don't want too much variety, because I need to just be on the straight and narrow with my protocol and what works. But yeah, look, I mean, I'm eating sardines a lot now. So I'll have 2 meals a day. I'll eat sardines. I might have like beef mince. I'll eat some pork as long as I know where it's come from. Yeah, the beef roasts are kind of pretty much a mainstay, and Olaf just cooks it beautifully.
Nice.
It'll be like a real slow roast, and it'll get up to about 80 degrees inside, and ping, that's when to put it on the side, and we just have cold cuts. So it's nice and easy and convenient. So it works really well.
Nice. I like that. But here somebody will say, "Oh my God, you eat meat, you eat eggs, you have raw milk. Your cholesterol, you're going to kill yourself. Your heart is bad and all that." So, do you do your blood work throughout the year and stuff like that?
Yeah, just once a year. I have a holistic doctor, GP, that is a client here. She's also a client of Olaf's. He's a strength trainer too. So we have that in common as well. And yeah, she's come full circle on the cholesterol story. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so really there's kind of no worry there. I think whenever I see my mum comes around and pops in for a cup of tea. If I'm like taking off a chunk of butter or something, and just having a little snack, then and I reckon I do it to wind her up as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are days when I'm at work, I think about, when am I going to go home and put butter on, right? I mean, that's what I think about. All right, so let's talk about gut health, inflammation, chronic stress, and how going through stress can affect the GI system. And you experience that as well. And do you experience that with your clients? Because you do manual work, I do manual work, and we see that relationship between the stress affecting the neck and the upper trapezius muscles, causing headaches, and we'll see that gut affecting the thoracolumbar spine and working the deep tissue in there. It does make a difference. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, and I guess more instinctively, I try and work with kind of energetics and chakras, and I use my studio to help people kind of break down and move their fascia a little bit more. And I think, I don't quite know how I would coin what I do, but I'll see somebody walk through the door, and just through their gait and their breathing and their movement, whether it's nice and fluid or whether it's a little bit tight and protected, then it'll tell me, if they're operating from their head or more from fight or flight, and their rib cage movement, as to whether it's kind of digestive because of stress, or whether other factors are at play. And I think in terms of my education thus far, I'll see, and we can all see tension, but in upper traps, like you say, upper thoracic, and kind of a bit of rigidity there, I think we can understand through the body work that we do that stress is affecting people in a way that their body just starts to guard. And it'll be upper body, it'll be, the stern, the upper traps, the trapezius, first off, and then it can kind of affect the gut too. So I find I use myofascial kind of release tools like soft tennis balls to release the psoas from the attachment points at the back that really help open the front line, which then in turn can open up the digestive system as well as the iliacus at the front, opening up the hips, and getting them to kind of almost unravel their week with me, but whilst they're moving, so they're on task and focused with their form, but that they're talking to me without me actually asking any direct questions that will help them to just kind of make peace with the week, or just unbridle themselves from the stress that they've had. And I think it's important for them to be with their body and come out of their kind of thinking system in order to get the most out of a session. But talking them through their week, just by asking leading questions and then letting them open up, and whether or not they open up verbally or open up in their body, I see a softening through using both of those methods. And
it's like an unwinding is how I refer to it.
Yeah.
Unwinding.
Yeah, we both use that terminology, and you see it,
yeah,
which is great. They become softer and more malleable and more relaxed in themselves. Yeah. So it's kind of almost meditative for them as well, which is great.
And I find, especially if we can combine it with like the breath work, especially if we're doing some abdominal, visceral stuff, and you can feel that relaxation, you can see that relaxation, especially in the tissue. I often say, like, when people talk about fascia, I know you said, the front line, I'm sure the whole anatomy trains, which is really fantastic. The spiral line, front line, lateral line. He did such a fantastic job. Tom Myers, right? It's Tom Myers.
Yeah.
I saw him in person twice, and my God, what a wealth of knowledge he really has. I think he did a wonderful job. But it's neat because when you have a practitioner who talks about something, then you get to see it met out in practice. So it's kind of cool. And I always tell people, like, your fascia is like a spider web in the corner room, right? You pull down on the spider web, the tension is felt all across the web. So yes, you have neck and upper trapezius tension, but you're clenching your jaw, you're not breathing diaphragmatically, you're scaling it tight. Now your stomach bothers you, and now you tell me you're constipated, and you can see like this one layer after the other layer happens, right? So
the domino effect.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people, you're constipated because you can't run from the tiger and poop at the same time, right? And that's the stress in a nutshell. So
That's it. Is it a tiger to begin with?
Right. Right. So it's great when you can finally get them to relax. So if we can talk a little bit about, like, we just touched on the breath work that you do. I saw you do one of your videos, and correct me if I'm wrong. One thing I looked up is like led me to gyrotonics. Was one thing, was a machine, then there was Pilates, but you were helping somebody. They were up in the air, and your feet, I think it was like in their like lower back, you were calling them to extend. I'm like, oh my gosh. So can you talk a little bit about that whole movement and fascia stuff that you do? Because I don't do that in the office.
That's a Pilates move. That's an advanced Pilates move, and that is beautifully opening for the upper thoracic. So I'm basically on my track table here, and somebody is hoisting themselves up with their arms and their legs are over the top, and I lie down underneath and press my feet up into the upper part of their shoulder blades, and they extend back. And look, typically I do that at the end of a session, and that would happen with somebody that felt completely at ease with me and confident and has adequate upper body strength. So my gyrotonic machine is, if you can kind of see my studio here, I came out into my studio this morning because big children, boyfriends, just let them sleep for a while. I use an aerial yoga hammock as well, just for, end of session stuff, maybe a vampire bat move, which is an inversion. I have an inversion, just ye olde inversion machine. Remember those?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I use one of those. I've got little machines everywhere and lots of tools. And you can see here over my shoulder, it's Joseph Pilates. It's a neck stretcher. So it's really good for bringing you into backline. And I guess my focus lately has been more like working the back line, because we become quite kind of compressed to our front line. And one of my ultimate kind of Pilates kind of mentors said, we're returning to the fetal position and we need to bring people to their upright selves because they can't breathe properly. They become stuck. And more kind of belly breathing. And I think traditionally that basal kind of diaphragmatic breathing is what I've been taught. And I've probably been practicing now for about 15 years, I'd say. It might even be longer than that. But I'm always cueing clients to basal breathe. But I'm moving into more meditative belly breathing now for the reasons that we've discussed, for better digestion, your whole kind of rest and digest. Also, to get that deep tummy pump going. And we talk about a seed center in gyrotonic terms, which to me just feels more kind of visceral than, deep core muscles. And we cue pelvic floor and TA in Pilates. And I think it's too linear. So I think the esotericness of, if that's even a word, of gyrotonic is more connected, and I think it allows more kind of lymphatic drainage and more kind of fascial kind of release, because you're going to end of range with spiraling actions, which I really love. And I think that's really opening and awakening for a lot of clients that tend to be stuck. And, you normalize tension in your body if it is kind of a daily thing. So I don't know, if you're an angry typer, you have a desk job and lots of emails, people behind those emails might frustrate you and trigger you in certain ways, then it's a recipe for like tightness in your upper body and a bit of a collapsing in your sternum. And I find the system here, and you can see here we go. You can see here the handles can be, the upper arms on the horizontal can be moved forwards and backwards. So you can turn the handles and really open up your shoulder cuffs and open up your pecs and get into kind of your upper back fascia, which is just great. So somebody that I know that has had a hectic week, they've been under a little bit of pressure at the office, they're on there, because that will really start to open things up. And it's like nothing else, machine-wise.
So, I mean, but a lot of this stuff, like, especially like when you're had your feet in the individual's lower back to extend that thoracic spine, these aren't beginner moves for somebody starting out, correct? I mean, So
Right.
how does somebody, can you talk a little bit to, I mean, I remember there's the Pilates ring, right?
Hmm.
There's a ring.
Hmm.
There's floor Pilates, and then we get into the machine and reformers and all that. So somebody may look at that and look at that, and especially like a reformer, like, oh my God, what is this machine? Like, what are we doing here, right? It can seem very overwhelming. So can you talk a little bit to like how should somebody at least engage or begin
Hmm.
Pilates, and what would they look for like in a studio?
Uh, okay, well, all right. I think when it comes to a studio, I think people that are starting out, depending on their starting kind of position, are they presenting with any injuries? For starters, and what are their goals? When they want to begin, perhaps it's more appropriate for them to go to a physiotherapy studio where there is a Pilates studio attached, and they can do remedial Pilates to begin with to get the basics. I would not recommend a reformer box, such as many of these studios that have opened up that do kind of 40 reformers in a room, and you adjust the springs according to your kind of level of expertise. Personally, I think that really bastardizes the actual movement itself. So I'd probably do 3 sessions in a physio studio, because they have a high duty of care there. It is quite two-dimensional, but it gets someone started. It gets them off those starting blocks, and it makes them more kind of confident with the equipment. And then you find a practitioner that has been in the field for a long time, maybe through word of mouth or recommendation, and also perhaps somebody that does body work as well. And look, I found myself as a client that going to a studio, it's better that there are smaller numbers in a room, maybe no more than 3 or 4, because you need that individualized instruction. Like, one size absolutely does not fit all when it comes to this kind of stuff. And you need to know what you're looking for. And because you're looking at the more intrinsic muscles rather than, your global ones, you're looking to engage muscles that perhaps you didn't even know existed in your body. And we're wanting to kind of override the tight and locked muscles, which, unless you're given that safe space and feel comfortable with the practitioner, and they have clear instruction, they know a little bit of NLP to know whether you're kind of visual or kinesthetic, or otherwise, then it's going to be a little bit hit or miss. So go to basics, go with a practitioner that's done a lot of school, and then you can branch out from there.
Gotcha.
And branch out from there if you're creative.
You mentioned NLP, but I know
Yeah.
that, but can you explain a little bit NLP?
Well, I think we all take in information differently. I think by and large, we are visual in the way that we learn, but some people like direct cues. So I could say to somebody, now let's start moving your spine like a snake. But to some people, it'd be like, oh, I'm afraid of
Right.
snakes. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to think of that association. And then to somebody else, it might be, imagine that your spine is a series of wooden building blocks, and I want you to stack. You're hanging your body over your legs in a standing position. Restack your spine from the base like it's wooden building bricks, and that would be able, I'm getting the message across to that person. They're feeling relaxed and comfortable in themselves, and they're like, oh, I can do that. And so you're getting the right kind of response. With others, it could be, I want you to flex your elbow, and that might work. But I think you quickly know as a practitioner, just by asking the basic questions when you do kind of an assessment, or we all do different types of assessments, whether it's a little bit more relaxed because you want the person to relax, or you have your clipboard and you're going through your, right, okay, we're going to do a Mackenzie stretch here because I want to know if, how tight your quads are or your glutes are by doing these stretches, as to how that person's going to respond. But you disarm them in that first 15, 20 minutes by thinking, right, okay, they respond to touch, because it could be a case of, look, I'd like you to just roll that shoulder cuff back a little bit, and that little bit of guiding hands on will help them to melt into the shape that you want them to be in order to connect them down their back and get their upper traps to start kind of opening. I hope that helps.
That does help for sure. Who is Pilates not for? Who should not do it?
I guess I find that there are people that maybe, I think it would really benefit everybody. But if you're at that place, I would say, rather than type of person, where you're wanting high explosive exercise and you don't akin kind of exercise and release work and working in a detailed way with your alignment, then perhaps it's not for you. If you think, right, my workouts need to be a big sweat, I need to be lifting really big weights, and I have to do 300 burpees in my week, then Pilates is most definitely not for you. But I think it's a place and time. I said to a client the other day, I do miss my mat classes at Anytime Fitness, which is a workout gym, and it will have like a studio kind of attached. And the last one I was at, it had a lot of glass, and so you'd get, and I don't mean to be disparaging, but like meatheads that walk past and look in and go,
yeah,
what are they doing, with one arm up and holding a pose and looking like, they're doing nothing, and thinking it's a nothing. But, on occasion, some of those meatheads did come in and try.
Sure.
They found it really hard and they didn't come back.
Yeah. And I'll have some weightlifters and guys work out kettlebells and weights and stuff like that. Like, why would I even do Pilates? I'm like, if you want to get stronger, if you want your movements to be cleaner, you're going to do Pilates.
And that is a beautiful way of explaining it. Yeah, your movement to be cleaner. And yeah,
100%.
I don't know, like Olaf has passed me a bunch of clients, so I'm being really honest here, and some have stuck around and others just don't get it because they're in that headspace of strength training, which is terrific also.
Sure.
And they probably just cannot connect to this type of movement in their bodies.
Right.
And I think it's been a long time since I've thought, I've lost this client, I've failed.
Right.
They just weren't a good fit.
Right.
And that's fine. Lovely person, lovely people, but it just wasn't for them at that time.
Right. But, one can see physiologically, like if you're dealing with like a perimenopausal physiology and, a 40-year-old female patient walks in with a rotator cuff issue, we know we have to get strength going. Pilates and strength training, it will be like the top thing they can do that would really help them, especially as they transition, more so as that physiology transitions, right? I mean, they're going to be able to meet the needs a decade later, right? So I always tell everybody, like, hey, listen, when we're in our 30s, we're training for our 40s. Our 40s, we're training for our 50s. 50, we're now training for 55. And the reason why I was cut by 50% is because we don't repair on a cellular level like we did a decade before, right? So when you can, again, match these type of movement patterns, the strength, Pilates in the sense of mobility, and then match that with the fascial movement pattern, you're gonna win. You're gonna win. Whatever you're gonna experience, it's just gonna be much easier to handle.
Absolutely. Words of wisdom there. Yeah, 100%. I wanted to ask, and I'm going to have to wrap up soon, but I want to keep on talking to you.
Yeah.
A chap called Stuart Fulton, he has written a book called Function, and it's at that 50 plus mark really that it really comes into play. And it's functional exercises that tie in with the type of work that we do, and it's covering off the basic pillars for longevity. So things like grip strength, balance, also reflex, timing with reflexes, and also walking at a pace, but also doing more kind of like basic arithmetic at that time, at the same time as well. So it's bringing in your kind of cognition with your body and your metabolism with regards speed and how adept you are at doing those things. And I'm finding it's really, really good. I'll send you some information about some of the tests, which you may well do anyway. But I'm incorporating that into what I'm doing now. It was a client that pointed me to his work.
Okay, I would love that. I would love that. All right, so let me do this. I'm gonna throw out some words to you, and we'll wrap it up. And then I'm gonna give you a word, right? And then you tell me what comes to mind. Okay, so I have my notes here, right? So this will be like a quick round, and we'll end up, right? So,
okay,
are you ready?
Yep, ready.
Okay. Morning sunlight. How do you feel? Good, bad?
Good.
Excellent.
Terrific.
All right. Whole foods.
Good.
Calories in, calories out.
Bad.
Mindset.
Good.
Thriving.
Good.
Gut health.
Terrific.
Meat is bad for you.
No.
Mediterranean diet is the only diet that has been studied and works for everyone.
It is absolutely not.
Fair enough. All right. So tell us real fast about grassland nutrition and how people can see more information on that.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Right. So Grassland Nutrition has been going for 9 years. It was founded by my in-laws, and they were beef limousine farmers in New South Wales. They hail from Denmark. We have 23 products. They are freeze-dried beef organs, but we blend kelp into our products as well for the essential iodine. It's a special type of kelp that comes from Tasmania. And we've recently introduced sardine products. We have a sardine capsule product and also a fermented sardine salt, which is really amazing. So our co-founder, Kel, he's our new product developer. We're also looking at another product at the moment, which will add to that seafood kind of range. But there's no synthetics or extracts. We've got a really short supply chain. Everything is Australian based. And we have a shop online. And we also sell to lots of nutritionists and health food online stores as well. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook. I'm trying to do a little bit more with YouTube. Izzy, my daughter, who you met at Meatstock, she's our social media manager because we're a really small team. But we do a good fight in order to get products out. But it's convenience, but it's whole food adjuncted with convenience. So, not everyone likes the taste of beef organs. Also, it's quite difficult to get hold of from your local farmer consistently. And it's just a way to kind of boost your nutrition and make sure that you're bridging the gaps with some of those nutrients that you may not be getting in your diet. And look, it's hard to cover all of the bases.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, and can you share like how they can get to you? What is your website?
Yeah, it's www.grasslandnutrition.net.
Okay, super. And I'll put that in afterwards because we're going to repost this as well. So, Sally, thank you so much for your time. Hang out for 1 second. I'm going to end. Everybody, this is Dr. Michael K. from the Center for Functional Health, and we will speak to everybody soon.
Thank you, Michael.